Jamie Dornan's confession that changed everything about Dakota Johnson. Los Angeles, California. A new storm has just swept through Hollywood when Jamie Dornan, the man known to millions of viewers around the world for his role as Christian Grey, suddenly spoke up to reveal the untold truth about his co-star Dakota Johnson. The news spread like wildfire, causing social media to explode in just a few hours. Thousands of comments were shocked, and a series of newspapers headlined, "Jamie Dornan finally tells what really happened between him and Dakota Johnson." But what shocked the audience the most was not the scandal, but the human and complex truth behind the glamorous halo. The moment that breaks the silence. Jamie Dornan appeared in a special interview with Vanity Fair, wearing a white shirt, looking calm, but his eyes contained something unsaid. When the host mentioned 50 Shades of Grey, he smiled, a little hesitantly. "I think it's time people knew what really happened," he said slowly. "Dakota, she wasn't just my co-star. She was my mirror." The room fell silent. The statement was simple, but its weight seemed to tear through a silence that had lasted nearly a decade. Jamie continued, "There are moments on set where we stop acting without even realizing it. What you see on screen isn't always a script. Sometimes it's just two people trying to figure something out." The audience was stunned. In that moment, what used to be called on-screen chemistry seemed to take on a different meaning, deeper, more real, and more painful. The father born in fire. When 50 Shades of Grey began filming, Jamie was a married man, and Dakota was a young actress finding her place. The pressure, the limits, and the challenging scenes created a vacuum where the line between acting and real emotion was blurred. "We had to trust each other completely," Jamie says. "There was no other way. Everything that happened in front of the camera was based on that trust." Dakota shared at a 2016 press conference. "Jamie was the only person who made me feel safe in scenes that anyone else would have felt uncomfortable with. He laughed, he talked, he made me forget there were dozens of cameras watching me." It wasn't a love story, but it's a rare bond, where two actors must expose their most vulnerable sides, not to fall in love, but to express the most genuine emotions possible. The pressure of fame. After the film was released, the world went crazy. Millions of viewers talked, imagined, and even wrote fanfiction about Jamie and Dakota as a real-life couple. But for Jamie, behind that halo was a potential nightmare. "People started to question my marriage, my integrity, and my limits," he admitted. "Every smile I gave Dakota became a rumor. Every time Amelia was absent from an event, it became a headline." Amelia Warner, his wife who was always by his side, chose to stay silent, as a way to protect her family. Meanwhile, Jamie had to live in two worlds. On one side was Christian Grey, a charming, strong man. On the other was a father of 3 children who just wanted to go home and read bedtime stories to his children. "The hardest part was not pretending to love Dakota," he said. "It was trying to remind the world that I loved someone else. When acting turned into belief." One of the things fans can't forget is the look between Jamie and Dakota during tense scenes. "It was so real, so raw," Jamie now admits. "There are times when I look at her, and I don't think about that scene anymore. I think about how deep she is, brave and vulnerable and real." Dakota responded with a small smile in a later interview. "Jamie is complicated in the best way. I trust him completely. Maybe that's why people think there's more to him." That trust not only helped them make a bold film, but also helped them understand themselves better. The aftermath, living in the echoes. As the trilogy ended, Jamie tried to return to other roles, but the world still called him Mr. Grey. The questions about Dakota lingered, no matter how hard he tried to avoid them. "I was doing interviews for a new movie," he says, "and people kept asking, 'How's Dakota?' I wanted to scream, 'She's fine. She's her own person, I'm mine. But they don't let us breathe.'" Amelia, aware of this, once said in a rare conversation, "Jamie is loyal. He always has been. I know what the world says, but I also know the man who comes home to me every night. Those words needed no proof. They were a quiet but certain statement, amid a sea of rumors. The truth fans didn't expect. And then, in that interview, Jamie revealed something no one could believe, a shocking truth, but not a sensational one. Dakota saved me, he says. Not in a romantic way, like people think, but in a very human way. She taught me empathy. She reminded me of honesty under pressure. He says there was one scene that almost made him quit. It was a scene where Dakota had to cry, and he had to keep a straight face. But when the director called cut, she cried for real, not because of the script, but because of the real tension between two people pulled into two opposing worlds, acting and real life. I couldn't comfort her as Christian, Jamie says, but I could as Jamie. And I did. That scene never made it into the final cut. But for Jamie, it was the most authentic moment in the series. The price of connection. Hollywood isn't stingy with pretty stories. After the interview, social media exploded. Some fans cheered, claiming that Jamie has admitted his true feelings for Dakota. But those who read the entire interview understood. He wasn't admitting love, but admitting the truth of human emotions. That between artists, there are moments that touch the deepest parts of the soul without naming them. Dakota responded with a simple post. Honesty is beautiful. This statement silenced the entire media. It wasn't a scandal, but a reminder. Sometimes the most shocking thing is honesty. Remaking peace. When things calmed down, Jamie returned to Belfast, where he and Amelia chose to live by the sea. He spent his time writing, fathering, and gardening. Amelia continued to compose, releasing a small, peaceful album. We found our silence again, Jamie says. And that silence means so much. Their love was not clouded by gossip. If anything, it was the way they saw each other's light and darkness. Amelia once said, I used to think silence was empty. Now I know silence can be full of trust, full of faith, full of love without having to shout. The salvation of a misunderstood man. Over the years, Jamie has been the subject of endless debate, handsome, mysterious, yet aloof. Yet everyone who has met him speaks of his quiet kindness, the way he apologizes to crew members if he hurts someone, the way he hugs his daughter when leaving home, the way he stops mid-flight just to help an elderly woman carry her luggage up the stairs. Dakota recently shared in a talk show interview. Jamie has this uncanny ability to escape people's judgment and still be himself. It's rare, it's brave. And that's perhaps the most shocking truth fans need to know, that behind the sex symbol image, there's a man still learning to be honest and kind. After the reveal. When asked if he regretted telling the truth, Jamie just laughed. No, because the truth doesn't ruin things. Only a lie does that. He understood that, ultimately, what he said wasn't just for his fans, but for himself, and for Dakota, with whom he had gone through a special, complicated, and unrepeatable chapter. We shared something that no one else could understand, he said. It wasn't a love story. It was something deeper, a kind of respect that only comes when two people trust each other completely. In this noisy world, sometimes the truth just needs to be spoken in a soft voice, enough to reach the person who needs to hear it. Final scene. One afternoon in London, Jamie was seen leaving a recording studio, smiling as he looked at his phone. A source said it was from Dakota. Thanks for being honest. No one knows exactly what the message said, but many believe it was a thank you, not a confession, but a show of respect. Jamie looked up at the grey London sky. He put his hands in his pockets, walking through the crowd. There were no paparazzi following him, just a normal man who had accepted his past. He once said, "The truth is not to shock. It's to set you free." And for the first time in years, Jamie Dornan was truly free.